Now we'll go more into how this is done, but let's just first keep it easy. To make a fist in Xingyi, watch me. Can you see my hand curling, yes or no? You see it curling? Let it curl into a fist and make sure your thumb clamps it here. Never, I repeat, never make a fist with your thumb inside unless you want to have your thumb be broken. There may be some that want their thumbs broken, in which case you will succeed. Okay? At the very end, what your thumb does is look at my hand. Can you see how this is a wrapping action? It wraps down and clamps the fist down. Okay? If you get this together, you can punch a brick wall flat out, no problem. There's still one or two more pieces to it, but I'll show you that as the weekend rolls on. Okay, have you got this? Your hand spirals into a fist. You don't squeeze your fist, your hand spirals into a fist. Okay, now, let's go next. So you start with your two hands here. I said there are many, many ways you can be, and this is the simplest one I know. Now from here, your fist, as your fist comes up, your elbow drops. Okay, as your fist comes up, your elbow drops. So that at the end, the tip of your elbow is facing the ground. And just do that one or two times with your hands, just so you kind of get the basic trip here. Now, watch. Nose. Your hand comes to your chin, and it goes forward out of your mouth. Your fist goes down. By the time your hand has reached your mouth, your elbow is on your center line. And then your fist extends and it goes out your mouth and out your nose. And when you finish, your elbow's down and your fist is facing completely upwards. Not a 45, ideally, like so. Okay, so let's do that again. Mouth, nose, and out. So you're on your center line, aren't you? Okay, stand up and try it now. Just try it once or twice. Fist, mouth, out the nose in front of you. And keep your elbow bent. Notice your hand should finish on your center line, not to the side, if you can. And that's going to require your shoulders open up a bit, but you learn more about that. Now the other point is that your fist and your whole arm twist like a drill. Your whole arm twists like a drill. It twists, it twists, it twists, it twists. Okay? Now, we go to the next part, which is why I had Isaac before putting his hands like this. Now you will notice that this pole, is that visible back there in the camera? Yeah. That this pole is on my center line, yes or no? Yes. Now watch something. Now is going to come the hard part. I'm going to have to turn my waist as my hand goes straight for this. And that means I'm going to basically do this. Watch. You see this? My hand's coming. Now look, when my hand starts to go here, is it on a line with this pole? Yes or no? Is it on a line with this pole? Yes or no? Is it on a line? So watch. It goes out. Where we go. Now, when you go out, the point is that in Xingyi, when this is done, martial arts that do impact momentum do a lot of this. Xingyi doesn't. Never. The phrase in Xingyi is Xingyi mei toi bu. Xingyi never retreats. So, as an example, there you go. Can you see my hand here? Do you notice that when I went forward, my hand's not snapping back? Look. Staying right where it is as you move. So your hands don't retreat. Now this is the opposite of mixed martial arts or karate or something, or a boxing jab where they bring the hand back. Shingi people don't do that. And one of the little games they play a lot is that when someone goes like this, when the hand comes back, because they don't go back, they just follow it right in. Which really freaks people out because they really don't expect it. Anyway, the point is that, could you all see that? There's no retreating. So now watch. My hand, when it goes out, why I'm saying this. Yes or no? Now, the next movement is going to involve this principle of not retreating. And try to understand that this is kind of the Shingi mind. It's not the mind of a bunny rabbit jumping all over the place. The Shingi mind is it just stays on whatever it's on. So the next time you do this particular move, there is the physical movement, but that's not Xing-Yi. So let's just go back for a second. What does Xing-Yi mean? Xing means form. Your body, any shape your body takes is a form. Okay? It doesn't, you literally, I don't know, I haven't seen it, but sooner or later I'm going to somewhere. That's a form. Now, and I'm sure some martial artist got that as a part of it. You know, maybe like they teamed up with Jackie Chan and worked it out or something. But the fact of the matter is that there is virtually no position you can put the human body in that cannot be used for combat, and there is virtually no position you can put the human body in if you know how human energetics work, that you can't wire some energetic quality into it. It may not be very efficient, it may not be a terribly high yield one, but given the fact you have 4,000 energy channels, you can always work something out. But some forms, and that's what the art of Xing-Yi teaches, will promote more energy use and are intrinsically more, let's just say stronger, more powerful, more effective. They can do something better. But the whole point of it is that the second word is Yi, Xing-Yi. And Yi means intent. It means the unwavering intent of the mind. Now some schools of Xing-Yi are even called Xing-Yi, which means the heart-mind fist, or heart-mind intention, which is a deeper level of intention than just your ordinary, I project my intent. It's much stronger. That's what like heavy-duty meditation people do. That's where there is no separation between your heart and your mind. Or put it this way, that's when your consciousness really starts to go online. So there's that. So there's all these different things, but what they mean is that some forms of Xing-Yi that are not super true to the tradition, or let's put it this way, are fairly a lower level of it, they just get you, oh, you do this move, and you do this move, and you do this move, and you do this move. Classically, the whole thing of Xing-Yi was exactly what kind of intent are you having, and to get that intent where it can move through your body and create a form. And if it can do that, and you start learning, you know, like what forms do what and how they do what, and then your energy starts becoming very plastic. It just can morph into anything you want purely by, not by thinking about it, but by having the totality of your ability to be aware and concentrate and move through your body. And that's an art, to be able to get your consciousness, your mind, to move through your body as a living force. When you did this punch, it wasn't just that you went like this. It's that you want to have a sense from your belly of your mind moving up your belly, up your center, into your hand. And when it gets here, there, it stays there. Not that your mind did this. Yeah, and then lost it. So remember I had you doing this thing? I said for 10 minutes, just for 10 minutes, can you actually keep your mind out there? Well, every motion in Xing-Yi is done that way. But now we go a little bit now. We'll move into the thing of form. Look. Now, watch what happens next. I'm going to turn forward. and I'm going to bring my fist into the crook of my elbow. In martial arts, that's what they call a hidden fist, because if you do this in front of someone, for example, if you just come here, if I do this, he can't really see my hand. Because he can't see it because it's back here. Go ahead. When I do something, it just comes out of nowhere. It's hidden until you do it. And the idea is you do something to divert his eyes or his angle or something, and also it comes out at you. And like, where'd that come from? Okay? But from a point of view of the body, consider this. And here's where Xingyi, or for that matter, Tai Chi and Bagua. Let's just stick with Xingyi now, because when I say it, most of these principles apply to Tai Chi and Bagua. Anyway, the big principles do, because they have their very specifics and strategically. Your mind goes out. It doesn't snap back. It's not intermittent concentration. It's continuous concentration. Now, part of this is that when people's minds snap back, their bodies naturally tense. And this is a terrible example, and I want to make this a point clear. I am not a cocaine head, and I never particularly did it. But I live in the world, and I sure have seen a lot of people on it. And what do you do when you see someone who's on a coke run? Or it's probably worse with methamphetamines, but fortunately somehow I've been spared having to look at that. But what are they like? Yeah, right, yeah. And every time they bounce back, it's like they went away and then they kind of come back, yeah, and like then they're not there anymore, and boom, 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 boom. Their mind plays this on-off switch very fast. And they can get faster and faster and faster. Of course, it's killing them, but that's a minor point. Some people like it. Why? You live in a tense society. Every time, that's what it's doing to you. And people get a charge from adrenaline. Xingyi does not produce adrenaline. It is designed not to produce adrenaline. It is designed to make the nervous system turn on completely without producing adrenaline. So part of this is that if your body contracts, it involuntarily contracts, your mind contracts with it. So part of it is to get your body not to contract. So now watch me. I'll show it from the front and I'll just turn to each side so you'll get a different view. Now watch my hand as it comes up. See this fist? Come over here for a second. Just here, take that cane and just hold the cane at my fist. Go ahead. Now watch me. I'm turned this way, right? Now look what happens when I come forward. My fist didn't go back, did it? Can you all see this? What would the natural thing a person would expect? No. And the only way you're going to pull this off is by having your mind stay relaxed, your mind be continuous, and not tense up. Because the second you tense up, your arm's going to start involuntarily contracting. Can you all follow this? So no tension physically or mentally. So you get here, boom. Now watch. I turn my body, and in this turning, it's also making my hand rise up my center line until they finally are together. If you'll notice, can you see where my backhand is? If you're in front, it's hidden. How are we doing? Now what I'm going to ask you to do with each other is this. Yeah, come back here, Isaac, because your arms are longer. It's easy to see. Stand here. So Isaac does the first, turn around. He does the first thing, boom. So here's all you're going to do. Take his hand and hold it. So it neither goes up, down, left, right, stays where it is. Next, Isaac, your waist should be slightly turned. Now, put your hand on his hips and just turn his waist back till he brings his hand in there. Okay? Turn his hips and bring his hand in there. And that's all you want. Now, there's one more thing about this. Now we add the next alignment. Here we go. Go ahead. Let's do it again. The next alignment is this. Beside the fact that these 4 points are together, this area in here wants to become softening. So the deeper you soften these muscles, the more your hand comes out. And that's the same principle in Tai Chi and Bagua too. And if you're going to do that with here, you also have to sink in here, in your quad. And then as you sink here more and you sink here more, you're going to find this whole wrapping action normally should become easier, because you're taking off some of the ways your body holds itself. So let's go through this one more time. So, okay, so first thing is that his mind goes out. Here he goes, and he does it. And Mouth, nose, and out. Hold his hand, have his waist. Okay, turn the other way and bring your hand in. Then when you can do that a couple of times, and his hand doesn't retreat, and he gets at least what the idea is, right? You get what the idea is without that involuntary wanting to contract, and it takes some time. The next thing you do is you go back here, whichever angle, put your hands in here. Now Isaac, go back to the beginning. Can you see how I'm softening the space in? Yes or no? Get your hands in there. Okay, do the first move. Do the second move. And do your best not to tense your pec muscles. Do you have any questions before you go and do it? Yes, no?
Are we turning the waist?
Yes. Look, watch this. Turn that way, turn back to the middle. That's it.
About the mind, do you want to have a feeling of your mind traveling through your arm, or it's just coming up and out your back?
Don't worry about your mind traveling through your arm yet. Just right now, make sure that your mind does one thing in particular. That when it goes out, it doesn't snap back as you bring your hand. Just keep it out there. That's it. So again, the mind doesn't retract, the body doesn't retract. Now we go to the next thing, which is going to be a little bit difficult. In the next movement, your one hand is going to retract slightly. But I don't know how, this is a tricky thing to explain. That even if my hand's here, when it's like this, and I have to bring my hand up, even though it's going to come down slightly, my hand slightly, my mind with my hand is still going forward. It's not retracting backwards. So Xing has this very funny thing when you're talking about the mind. Its first practices are all exceedingly young. It has 3 phases of practice. Mingxin, Anjin, and Huajing, or obvious power, hidden power, and mysterious power. You could call it transformative power. And it's not really any of the techniques in Xing Yi that would be described as soft are in the hidden power and in the mysterious power category. They're not in the obvious power. In the obvious power, it's about, can you get your mind to go through, period, without being derailed? It's like an army. Has its spears. It is just going to go through the enemy's ranks, period. Later on, things get more subtle, but not in the very beginning, because it's just the nature of it. Tai Chi starts off from yin to arrive at yang. Xing Yi absolutely starts out at absolute yang to eventually arrive at yin, but it never gets all that yin. Bagua has this thing where it actually is right in the middle between yin and yang all the time. And it can flip either direction, but its basic thing is right in the middle between yin and yang. Soft and hard actually don't really apply to it. To them, they're just frequencies of energies they play with, just like a violinist plays with their strings. It doesn't have any meaning. But Xing Yi is very clear. It's very young. So, even the next thing that we're going to do, I'm going to show you, which is going to be about from here. Okay, your hand's here. You're now going to turn your waist, and your hand is going to come down, but it's not going to come back. It's going to come down your forearm. Can you see this? Down your forearm to the bottom of your elbow. Down your forearm. And again, this is going to be a place where your body is going to have a natural tendency to want to contract. Can you all follow me? It's just going to want to contract. Your mind's going to want to come in. Your body's going to want to contract. And you have to just release it enough so it can stay out there. Now this is even in San Ti, this is not that different. Many of you here have done, because I know, because you told me you've done standing, so you stand like this. One of the hardest things when you stand is after a while just not to start shrinking in, just to actually keep it out there. Because all the yang standing postures, that's what they're about. They're about staying out there. And all the yin postures are about staying in the same place as everything comes into you. Okay? So I want you to get, this is one where everything's going out. That's the only point. I'm going in from several angles so you get the main issue. So now if we look at this here, and if this could happen, Isaac, I'll be at a 45 because you'll see it easier. So my hand went like this, boom, yes. 2. Now watch what happens. Just keep that so you can see it in space. I'm basically leaving my hand there, but watch what's going to happen now. I'm turning my waist, and what's happening? My other hand went forward. Now, take that away for a second. Notice something. This elbow is bent. In all movements of Xingyi, the elbow never straightens. It doesn't straighten from a martial art perspective because a straight arm is a broken arm. It's very easy to break. Try it sometime if you want. Straighten your arm and have someone go like this. Bend your arm and resist and watch that you can. It's not more complicated than that, but it's more than that. All the way the joints are bent and releasing are all about causing compression and release of the fluids inside your joints. It's not about muscles. Xingyi actually doesn't consider muscles to be that important. It does consider fluid movements in the body because where Xingyi gets its power from, like Tai Chi and Bagua, is not muscles. It's by changing the fluid compressions in the body. The biggest one you have is your blood. They actually change the fluid pressures inside the blood, as well as they actually change the fluid pressures inside the joints, the synovial fluid. And when you get really good in Xingyi, you change the pressure inside your spine. And that eventually leads you to being able to play with the pressure of interstitial fluid in the body, the stuff that goes between your cells. So it's based upon fluid compressions and releases, not muscular tension, relax, or contraction, extension. So it's a different animal. It's based upon an entirely different set of physiological principles than what is normally done in the West, or what is normally done in most martial arts. So that's a very important point. And that's one of the reasons it's so healthy for you, because if you want to come right down to it, you know, your muscles can be messed up, and you can be quite healthy. If the fluids in your body start to become messed up, they call that, you know, you're crippled or you're dead, or you're lying in a hospital bed paralyzed for the rest of your life. So fluids are very important. We're mostly composed of water, and changing how these fluids work, that's very basic to Xingyi. It's very basic to all internal martial arts, and it's also all basic to all Taoist Qigong. And this is a rather unique thing the Taoists got that nobody else in the world particularly tweaked to. Nobody else in the world went that far with. And yoga is about muscles. It's not about deliberately just playing with fluid compressions. That's a Chinese thing. And they really, I think it was a cultural mark of genius that somebody, at least, who knows, maybe the spaceman gave it to him. Who knows where it came from? I mean, seriously. Yeah, I mean, who knows? But what I have to say is, as much as I've traveled around the world, they're the only group in the world I know that ever actually figured this out. And it was basic. It was a baseline to everything they did for thousands of years. Taoists, not all Chinese. Taoists are one very small group in China, that their whole culture, that formed the basis of their entire culture. Okay, so have you got what we're doing now? 1, 2, 3. Now what you're going to do, for example, and this is what you're going to do with each other. So Isaac is going to do this now. Should I say Isaac? Never mind, I saw that in a movie. Go ahead. Here we go. So that's 1. So I hold, right? And I just, okay, 2. Great. Hold it. Go for it. Now, aha, he missed something. What did he miss? He didn't turn his waist. There you go. He didn't turn his waist. And if he can make it go just that bit further, he wants to actually get his elbow up to his hand. See how it's well bent? So again, watch if he does it to me, put you on my waist so it's very obvious. Okay. Turn your waist once, turn your waist twice, turn your waist 3 times. Notice it's to the side. Remember the 4 points, remember your knees, remember your lower back. Please. Now, let's just go back to where we were a little bit yesterday. The last thing. It was getting a little bit dark, so I'm not sure whether all of you could see quite well or not. Here's a trick. I ideal way in which when you first go into Picha and your foot goes out. The ideal way, and as I said, I don't think it's that doable for people in the beginning, is that once you're here and you go here, see this? Just watch. See how I kind of went like that? And then you go down. The great trouble is if you will watch that my hands are moving as I'm airborne. Now, that little business of takes a bit of time before your legs and your hands can get together. And therefore, I don't recommend that people start that way. I recommend they do it after a few months and they've kind of got their nervous system and their body coordination together. What I do recommend that you start off with is like this. Go all the way up, right? Then just step, let your hand go out a little bit, go out just a little bit, step with your heel. And then as your foot goes down, you're going to do that action. And I think that's the best way of going. Now I'm just going to do this. I'm doing more what's more like classical Xingyi. Now there is, for example, where you have Xingyi styles that are mixed in Bagua. And I did this for years with Hong Yishan. He would do something like this. And that, if you, those of you know how to do Bagua, what is that? I mean, it's just that with your hands. However, that wasn't classical Xingyi, in my personal opinion, is that having done Santi and Picha and Wang Xujing, having done it with Liu Hongjian, having done it through Hong's Way where they mix Xingyi and Bagua, that in terms of 99% of people, unless your primary focus is going to be Bagua, I think the classical Xingyi is actually better for your body and better for training your mind. Pure and simple. And it isn't that big a deal if you want to convert it. Okay? So let's just kind of go back to what we did with the legs yesterday, because I think it was getting a little bit dark, so I'm not sure you could see well. So let's just look at this thing here. Your heel's out. Look at both my knees and notice what you see happening. Can you see how is my heels going? Can you see that knee going out? Yes or no? Effectively, what this is doing is it's taking the whole area inside your pelvis and inside your spine and opening it up. Now, there's a similar principle that's in Xingyi, Tai Chi, and Bagua. That's the same. And in Bagua last week, I went through it to a great degree. But same thing in Xingyi. If we take the perineum, let me just ask a question. This might really make it easier. Can anybody here do a shoulder stand? Put their legs up in the air, split their legs and hold it. So now watch something. If we take a look at this, what we're essentially talking about is the area between about here and here. Not quite where your knee is, but it can go to your knee. And most people, if you just could kind of like let everything shrink in, let your pelvis, most people, when they have a stance, rather than being this way, see how this whole area is opened up? Well, there's a couple of things are involved. The first one is that your perineum, where your chi goes from your legs up and down, it's fully open. But the second one is that this posture, if it's done, opens up the bones, the two bones of the pelvis here, back here, and it allows the pelvis to open up. If you're going to have your chi drop from your body down to your lower dantian, one of the things that the pelvis acts like a bowl that almost like pulls the chi down. And then it has to go in between your legs. Now, if, for example, one of her legs was more like this, that just closed the pelvis. It's not as fully open. Can you all get that? If it's not fully open, that means the chi is not moving from your feet to your legs completely. So the object of what you're doing with your legs is to get this area, it's not just the perineum, it's the entire pelvis. And this action, if you hold an action like this, if you've ever done yoga, after a certain point, the way in which you can do it better or worse is the fact that you feel your sacrum open up and the way it connects into your whole pelvis. Otherwise, you can't do this, and especially if you want to, like, do a full lotus in that position or something. Okay? Does everyone follow this? Thanks, Anita. Now, the point here is that that's what we're after when we're holding a stance of Santi or in any and every motion in Xingyi. So, if you now will just look at my pelvis, the perineum, that area that I call the dang, is closed down. Can you all see this? But now watch what happens if I just move my knees out a little bit. Did you watch the inside of my pelvis just go boom, open up? That's the object. Now, classically in Shingi as a martial art, you might say, well, if your legs are open up that much, you're going to kick you in the groin. But I got to tell you something. Whether your legs are open up this much or this much isn't going to matter. And if that's really what you're concerned about, if you're, you're a young guy, then simply learn the techniques for pulling your testicles into your body. You don't have a problem. No, Wang Shijing used to do that. I mean, he made that point rather unambiguously. There are problems with that technique, but if it works, it's really great. And if it doesn't work well, it can have some secondary issues. But the fact of the matter is, it's a big thing. It's a big thing in Kung Fu. Okay, so they're not as worried about the thing, kick him in the balls, and it's supposed to like be the be-all and end-all. Well, the thing is that real Chinese martial arts doesn't care about kicking somebody in the balls because a lot of people could suck their testicles up. What they used to do is kick to break the bottom of the pelvis. The object was to smash the pelvis apart. It wasn't to kick him in the balls. Because once you can pull your testicles inside your body, so what if you hit it? They're up here. They're not down there. But leaving that aside, the main point here is let's take this from another position. You have health, you have your body. Your qi circulates throughout your whole body continuously. The place that either will cause your qi to shoot through your system the strongest or the weakest is going to basically be from your pelvis down, not from your hips up. That's a reason why, for example, above and beyond blood flow issues, people who become paraplegics or quadriplegic, they can't really use their legs, they don't live that long. I mean, they live, but they don't live to be 100 years old. That just doesn't happen. Because once you cut that whole circulation, your body weakens. Conversely, if you increase it, then probably you'll go longer. Now, one of the things I used to do, which I just want to mention, is to Santi, because you see, this stuff, this is the modification of Xingyi that was done in the Yichuan school. And they would have people, even in Beijing doing things like this. This is the quote-unquote cancer walk. And one of the biggest things of it, besides taking energy into your body and throwing it out, is the point that was constantly mentioned, and the point that is constantly mentioned when you're standing to make you healthier, is that, look at my legs. It has to open. That area must open. That's how you get the line that goes up and down your body. So this is extremely important. Can everybody follow me? So what we're going to do is just spend a few minutes trying to get that with your legs, and then we'll move into the hands and how you make the hands and the legs connect. So here's what you're going to do. The first part of this is going to be simply, this is all you're going to do. Can you get the area we're working with, yes or no? First thing you're going to do is you're just very lightly going to find out how much can this area open without hitting a strain point, that it's a strain to keep it open. But how far can it open? That's part one. You have to understand this. Now you have to realize that when you do part two, you're going to want to use your legs to open up this area in your pelvis and not your pelvis per se. So now watch something. If I take this here, he sits back, it's in his back leg. If he moves his leg slightly forward, watch what's happening to this area. Move your knee slightly forward. Could you all see how that's open up the leg, yes or no? Now you have a problem or an opportunity. It's a two-edged sword. If you make your knee go too far forward, it'll actually close this area down and it'll strain your knee. So you've got some place beside sitting right here where your knee is kind of like into your body, and if you just stick it out a little bit, it opens up your pelvis to the maximum, but you don't feel as though you're straining. This is Goldilocks and the Three Bears, not too hot, not too cold, but just right. So you have to get it where it's just in that point to where it opens it up as much as going to go, but not that if I would exaggerate it, you feel as though you're going, it has to be comfortable, because if it's not comfortable, it can't be maintained. Do you understand? You can maintain anything that's uncomfortable for a few seconds, a couple of minutes. You couldn't do it for an hour. You just want, or the only other thing you can do if it's that uncomfortable is your body's going to have to contract and close down. You're going to have to go numb, which is also what you don't want. Now, but we're still not done. When you make this knee go slightly forward, understand what's occurring. If you take the distance from about here, which is on the other side of your lower dantian, and the point they call Mingmen, or the door of life, and you were to measure how much distance running down your pelvis, going to your leg, down in your foot, your object is to increase that distance. And that's going to mean that as you move your knee slightly forward, you remember that thing I had you doing about dropping your pelvis? Well, if you drop your pelvis, that's how you're going to get more length. Now, when I say drop your pelvis, I want to make a very big distinction. There are two terms in Chinese martial arts. There are two terms in all of Qigong. The word dun means to physically go down. The word chen means for your qi to drop down, and with your body staying still. Your body may internally lengthen, but the absolute bottom of your pelvis, the bottom of your rear end, does not drop. This is about chen, not about dun. You can, over time, physically go lower, but the central point is that your qi has to drop, and internally you have to lengthen. When you have all that together, then you can drop your body weight and use it for whatever you can use it for. I mean, that's just, that conforms basically to the laws of physics. So as we look at this here, we have to consider that as his back knee is going to go out, his knee moves, but the process of his knee going out, can you see how it's coming just out of my pelvis, basically? That has to lengthen the space in his lower back all the way down to his foot. This helps your qi to drop. Now, we're still not done. Now turn the other direction. So you all have that. That's what he's doing with the back leg. Okay, now, again, this would be too wide. His feet should be more narrow, because the distance between his heels should not, and someone as thin as him, should not be more than an inch. Maximum. Now we have the next thing. Notice if I hold his pelvis still, what happens, for example, if it's just letting your legs straight? That's actually not a very long stretch. But if we take this from here and we start moving the knee forward, the question is, how far does it go with your weight still completely on your back leg, that it's opening up the inside of your pelvis yet more? Okay, do you follow that? So we got what you do on the back leg and the front leg. The last but not least is, how do you balance them? Remembering the pressure that's going to happen by your legs going like this, you eventually should feel this right in your belly and right inside your pelvis. Now, how do you get, as you're dropping, both of them to go out equally? So you feel very, very, very stable, and yet it feels as though the bottom part of your body is suddenly going whoom all the way down to your feet. And if you even try just lightly to squeeze your feet or something, you can actually feel a current starting to rise. Just a little bit, you can get a current to rise, but the rising part is not what you focus on. If you get the dropping, and you truly get the dropping, you automatically get the ability to bring it up. But if you don't drop it, you can bring it up for the rest of your natural life, and you may not be able to drop it. Can you all follow me? So this is the essential thing of syncing your qi. And that's a very, very big thing. You've all read in all these books, syncing your qi. Well, guess what? They're really not kidding. And these are some of the structural imperatives. For example, and you have similar stuff, for example, in Tai Chi, right? See people like this. Can you all see how this is closed inside the pelvis? Then you have this, now it's fully open. So it's the same exact principle, same principle in Bog, it's the same principle in every form of Taoist Qigong or Neigong that exists. But in terms of Xingyi, it's critical because eventually, when you start walking, every step to get power is going to come from boom, opening up the legs and opening up the perineum. It's not going to come from making your arms strong. And all of you, I invite you to try and experiment. You think you have strong arms? Tell you what, some point this afternoon, there's a long patch of grass there. Walk on your hands and get across it and come back. And you will find out just how strong your arms are relative to your legs. Your legs are very strong, your belly's very strong. Nobody's arms are as big as their belly, and if they are, all I can say is, clearly they must own stock in a steroids company. That the fact of the matter is that you're looking, if you're not going to have a sense of using any force in your arms, the strength has to come from somewhere. And where it comes from is your belly and your legs. Can you all hear me? And this is very, very different than a lot of other martial arts. They'll work their legs, they'll work their arms, they'll quote unquote have core strength, but they don't actually draw energy through their body from their legs. Both up and down, and Xingyi does. Okay, so you all got the idea now? So take a partner, because here's the thing. Yeah, my legs are open. Absolutely. Because if you've been contracted for a long time, what feels normal to you? Being contracted. So then you just have a partner so that if in case it isn't, you know what they do? They open your, oh, you mean that's what it's like to be open? And that can be a revelation because maybe your body's never done it before in your life. This is like new. So do it with a partner and have them just see if they can help open up your legs. If you can do it, and you look at your partner and they're doing it fine, you don't need to help them. But if it looks like they're not, just gently take your hands in the bottom of their legs and go like this. So they get some sort of an external counterpoint that gives them feedback about whether they're doing it close, far away, or not at all. Okay? Please. Now, a common question that gets asked, and I was asked it, and if you haven't asked it, then just goes to show you didn't tweak, okay? Common question that comes up with is, well, how do you know how far to open your legs? And how do you know also how long to make a stance? Now you'll have, there are styles of Xingyi that are very deliberate. They keep these very, very tiny stances. They have a very specific way they do, especially in the Shanxi style. And then you also have ones where there's people doing these really giant stances, which is like the biggest of the Hebei style. The only person in the Bay Area I can think that ever did that I ever saw was Wang Jiaman. He also taught Peter Rawlson, so Peter Rawlson did that one. But I'm trying to say there's a whole lot of variation. What I'm going to try and do now is have you understand what the basis of it is, because beside you folks here, we're going to make a tape so you can have it later on. Other people do other Xingyi styles. You know, this may be helpful for them. And it also may be helpful that when you're seeing other Xingyi styles that you don't get befuddled and confused, like, well, you know, you see a movement that's like this, or you see a movement that's like this, you go like, is that different? Well, yes and no. As a matter of fact, I say mostly no. The appearance is slightly different. Here's what the point is. There's a very, very basic principle in Taiji Xingyi and Bagua that's used in applications in fighting people that is exactly the same as what you're doing to yourself. And that's simple. If I want to pull him, okay, the way that most people do it is they pull the wrist and pull the arms and they try and more or less get the person's shoulders. That's not what it's about. If I only use 2 fingers to pull him, if I try and pull him from his shoulder, resist, I'm going to have a hard time doing it. But if I take his arm and I just lengthen it to his spine, where I get his spine, even with 2 fingers, it's nothing to pull him. Because his arms engage with his spine. Can you all see this? Look, if I make this very simple. All right, if I have him like this and I pull, he's okay. But if I just look at his arms and look at his spine, can you all see how I got his spine because I'm rocking and rolling him? If I pull now, he comes. Okay, so this is about engaging your spine to your arms if you're pulling. Well, wait a second. Now, understand. Engagement is engagement is engagement. Now we just have to define what we're engaging and for what purpose. So if you look at this, there's a certain point to where when you have your legs, you kind of feel like your pelvis is your pelvis, your legs is your legs, your spine is your spine, and frankly speaking, all 3 are happily coexisting, but they have no relationships with each other. They're not blood relatives. They're just kind of in the same neighborhood, right? You all following me? But then if you do something else and you start getting your legs to go out, there's going to be a certain point, just like grabbing the spine, engaging the spine. When you get to here, all of a sudden, your legs, the inside of your pelvis, your spine, your belly, it's like whoomp, they all become one thing. And that's the same thing as you've used your legs to engage your entire pelvic region. It's very hard to do it from your pelvic region to engage your legs because your legs are longer and stronger. But the legs can do it. It's just a leverage thing. Do you understand? I mean, that can exert maybe 10 times the degree of force that your pelvis by opening up can exert on your legs. It's just the fact that you walk on your legs. They're strong. And that's kind of how it works. So the trick here is that in terms of how far you open up your body, it's a question of, see how the knee goes here? Now, here, if you take your knee, the point is that as I just make it, it doesn't have to go, how much am I moving? I get engaged. Look, if I go like this, my pelvis seems kind of, if I just go a little bit, can you see how it's really connected to the legs? Now, how much did I move? I don't know, 1/4 of an inch? So it isn't a massive amount of movement, but if you can remember what I did to his arms, here, come here, Isaac, I'll do it again. Look. Again. Look where my hands are in space. Watch. How much are my hands going to move to get his spine? How much did they just move? How much is it? 1/4 of an inch? And now I got him. Same thing. Your legs don't have to move much. But this is, you know, the story of Goldilocks and the 3 bears. Not too hot, not too cold, just right. You've got to just find that just right point. So it's no strain. It's comfortable. And you could do it all day and all night if you had to. Because that which does not require strain can be maintained virtually indefinitely. That which requires strain, now we're into the question of how much stamina do you have? And strain destroys stamina. It eats up the nervous energy that creates the stamina. So you want to be in a no strain position so your nerves are not using up excessive energy. Just as in your regular life, you really stress yourself out to do something, I guarantee you're going to have problems at the end of the day. You can get all the stress symptoms. If you can learn through some machine how to be completely outputting, but without causing massive strain or stress, all I can say is the stress in terms of your life is going to get a whole lot better. Okay, so now we have a second issue. Well, you first start, I got this here, but now, let me see. If I put my leg here and I do this, can I get that engagement? Maybe not, maybe yes. But then again, maybe if I just go back a little bit more, I have the engagement. But I go just that little 1/4 of an inch and I dislink the engagement. So what seems to be the principle we're working on here? Thy legs shall engage thy hips and waist and spine. So how long your stance gets, as you get more flexible, as you practice much more, you can get a bigger and bigger and bigger stance. And the vast majority of people who did the stances that were really big and huge, if you ever want to just do something, you know, go look at their pictures, you're not going to find a big stout lad among them. It works with the skinny folks. It works with the very thin folks because they just don't have, you know, and they're usually people with long bones. There are some people like Zhu Yuting, who was Sun Ludang's one of his best students, in his book and everything. I think you had it over there, Jess. I think I saw it. Look, he's like this. And, okay, to give an example, can I have that book? He doesn't have his legs way out like this, does he? They're like this. But look at his legs right now. Are you noticing anything about them? If you had to describe this person's legs, what would you say they were? Short. Right? And now I guarantee you if his leg length was relative to his body, another 15 or 20%, this foot here would be out here somewhere. Because that would be where he could engage it to maximum sense of engagement. But in his case, it's small like this because this is more like what I do. Why? Because if any of you just have eyes, look, I have short legs. I have a very long body, I have very short legs. Hey, some people got very long legs and a short body. It doesn't matter because in terms of engagement, thank you. In terms of engagement, it's real simple. Like with a car, you're in the gear. That's it. That's it. You're in the gear, you're not in the gear. And if your body loosens up and your hips get better, okay, you can go out further. That's fine. But only if you still have that sense of engagement. Now I give you one more thing about this engagement. It's not, remember what I said, it's not just your hips and the inside of your legs. It's also that from when you engage your legs, that engages your spine. Okay? So that the strength of your spine, the strength of your legs start fusing. And that's very important because that determines if your central nervous system is going to pump out the max of what it can do or it's going to pump out a minimum. You disengage your legs from your spine, then, okay, you can use upper body, but you can't use your whole body strength because your nervous system is not connected to your legs that well. You don't have the whole flow. And just remember something, in terms of anything. You could hit a human being with a 3-pound hammer all day and all night in their head if it were that big. Like one of those cartoons? Because the force would be so but do you make it a little tiny pinpoint? 3 pounds will go right through their skull. So what you're trying to do is you're trying to dissipate, directly connect your spine to your legs, but dissipate its force so that anything traveling through doesn't get stuck in your spine. This breeds for good spinal health and good spinal strength. Okay? And the spine, big part of metal. They always talk about a steel spine in all the internal martial arts. So he gets forward and he gets in that stance, right? Now, if you really have it, what you're going to find out is that if you engage your legs, have someone push your belly and see if you engage him, if you can hold a stance. Use your legs to open up your pelvis to hold a stance. Now, don't engage your legs. They go. Because their weight and their energy is not traveling into your legs. So you don't have to make it a big thing. For example, come over here, Jess, you push on my knee. Look. If my leg's like this and he pushes on me, or push there and push on my belly. And he does it. Okay, go ahead. I mean, I can hold it, but it's a bit of a strain. But do it again. But if I do this, there we go. It gets a lot stronger. When I say to take a break, I really mean take a break, because if you keep on practicing, you keep on doing these, even if you're very enthusiastic, which is wonderful, the fact is your nervous system is not going to have had the time to discharge and start moving some of what you've learned in a long-term memory. So the next thing that comes up, you're going to get it less, and it's going to build up that by tomorrow, you're not going to be getting, a lot of it simply your system's going to be filled up. So you have to let the system kind of, when it fills up, go down a bit before you fill it up again. And that's also a basic principle that when you practice Xingyi, if you feel as though your system has become just so overloaded, then you just kind of lighten your practice a bit till everything kind of absorbs. And when it reaches that stasis, then you can go back to putting a bit more on. And this is an art. And this is the art of moderation. And the art of moderation is almost anti-American. It's just not the way the society works. And frankly speaking, every culture that's been on the face of the earth has always considered this to be one of the most important principles going. And it's not an easy one to work out. That's all there is to it. I mean, things gravitate toward the extremes. One of the big things about Santi is that what it's seeking to stabilize in the system is the up and down current of energy in the body to make it very even. Now, part of this is that internally, your body has places that it should rise, so your chi rises, and places where it should fall, so it brings it down. And the art is to get these two balanced so that each reinforces the other and makes it as strong as it can be. So now we look at two things about your feet. The first one is that the sole of your foot, we take the outer rim. Of course, obviously, if you have an arch, it's not going to touch the ground. Well, here, let me get some. Is anyone here reasonably flexible? They could put their foot behind my shoulder. Now watch. Hopefully you have an arch. If you don't have an arch, then all I can say is that you have to learn opening the energy gates of your body and how to. There's a procedure of the 5 rings that can bring it back. If you want to know about it, you can talk to Martel. He had flat feet his whole life and he got rid of them. So I'm just saying there's a way to do it. There's a way to do it. But we're not doing that here because that's not what this course is about. But if you have an arch in your foot, you want the pressure all the way around where your foot is touching the ground. You want your foot to literally be pressing that ground, that all this weight in your upper body is going to come down into it. Can you all follow me? But then you have a second thing, and that will drop your energy. Now, the balancing act is it right in here where the center of the arch of the foot is and the top of the foot. It wants to have a sense of rising. So you're going to have one part of your foot that's being pressed down, and the other part of your foot is basically doing this. Take a look. Now, for example, ballerinas and whatnot, they do this all the time, but they can't sink their energy to save their lives. Okay, so there has to be both. And to do that, you have to be very clear about what part of the foot is doing what. So this area here presses into the ground, the arch and the top of the foot raises. So, okay, so let's look at something. If you're just standing, and even though there's no weight, your leg has weight, yes? And did you all watch the way my foot kind of collapsed? If I raise that arch up slightly, my foot's not going to collapse. Can you understand that? If I just let my foot completely, everything go down, it could very easily fold either way. Your foot doesn't want to be on the outside or the inside, at least not in the beginning. There are techniques where you will deliberately in Xingyi put your weight on the inside of your foot to bring energy up and put energy on the outside of your foot to drop it. But we're not there yet. That's later. Here, the point is that everything, your pelvis, it goes down. So you can feel the whole weight of your spine, your pelvis. That thing we did with the legs at engagement, it should press the bottom of your foot. Like if someone, if someone were like a brave soul and they wanted to put their hand underneath my foot, just by going like this, I could snap the bones in your hand. No maybes about it. But then again, you can't be stuck there, because if you do, what is that doing to your energy? You can't get up. There has to be the rising. So in that sense, the rising of the foot here, it should cause the crown of your head to lift. So your energy goes up. So the foot, everything you're doing, if you want to make your energy go down, you have the sense of your energy going down your head into your foot. You want to make it rise, you have the sense of rising it up to your head from your foot. Now this is not a beginning technique, but eventually it does arrive there. And in the beginning, you don't even try and do that. Because if everything in the middle of your body is blocked, all I can say is that's kind of a waste of time. You have to open up the places that are blocked. But from a very simple starting point, the more your foot sinks, the more your arch rises. How are we doing? Yes or no? Yeah. That's both feet. You got 2 feet. So it's also, the more you get like this and your foot goes down, the more your arch rises. And what you will find is that if you get this rising of the arch and the going down, your foot starts to get an amazing amount of spring, almost like it's like a boom, 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 a bing, bang. Here, look, just look at me if I'm doing it. Forget about the rest of me. This way, if I bounce, you get this. But if I do this, any of you see the bounce that goes into the foot? Just makes it like a one big spring. Okay, how are we doing? Yes or no? And again, you couldn't see this as watching someone. You actually have to understand what it is you're trying to do. But the science of Neigong is all that way. It's, it's just like when we have a computer box. Nobody sees the chips that are inside. So is it a 286 chip, or is it the Pentium number 4705, whatever it is, the next generation? So it's what you're doing inside that makes a difference how the external box, which is called your body, works. Some people find it naturally, but this is actually the science of how it's done. Now, so what we're going to do is we're going to do that. Now, get this just kind of idea. So, for example, David, come in, put your finger underneath the arch of my foot. Now, can you all see his finger, yes or no? Yeah. Now, if I'm sinking, can you feel the pressure on the rest of my foot? Yeah. But watch what happens now. Is there pressure coming off of your hand? Yeah. That's the arch lifting. So it's the arch and it's here. Okay? And the energy in the back of your foot rises, the energy in the bottom of your foot sinks down. Now this is the same thing that very commonly happens when you're doing Santi, you're doing Pichang, is that very commonly the energy of the palm of your hand is going forward. That's the equivalent of the bottom of your foot. Think about soft part. But then again, from here, the energy is coming backwards. So again, there's all these always up. What is done in Taiji Xingyi and Bagua, even more dramatically in Bagua, I should say, than Xingyi, is there's a phrase. It's about the I Ching. You shang, you xia. If you have up, you simultaneously have down. Not you have up and then down. You have them both at the same time. Yo zhou, yo yo. If you have left, you simultaneously have right. Not you do something to the left and you do something to the right. No, that if you do something to the left, there's something happening to the right that's exactly balancing it. Think of a sphere, and all parts of the sphere having the balance of the sphere will collapse. Yo qian, yo ho. If there's forward, there's back. If there's forward with your palm, there's back. Okay, and there's stuff going forward, stuff goes back from your spine. Yo nei, yo wai. If there's something happening inside of you, it causes the outside. If something is happening outside of you, it is being generated or at least linked to what's happening inside of you. So they're not separate. Inside and outside are not separate. Okay, so this is a very fundamental thing. So if we look at this here, you have here, what do you have? If you have down, you have up. How are we doing? Now I'm going to give you one more thing about this up that's kind of important, and this is very important in terms of your body and your health. So again, I need a foot. Come here. Now, I should say that of the 3 internal martial arts, Bagua does this the best of all of them. There's no maybes about it, because it walks. But part of this upward is that this area back here, right? Can you all see how I'm right behind that tendon? This area right back here is the big blood vessel that is responsible for taking the blood that normally would pool in your feet and get stuck and bringing it back to the heart. And that's very important as part of this lifting, is that there is the sense of that. This area back here is kind of doing this. Look at me. There's a hole, and it's lifting up, almost a sense of bringing the blood up your leg. Now, many of you here may not be completely familiar with medicine. The vast, overwhelming majority of all heart problems that anybody has is not due to the fact that your blood cannot get from your heart to the extremities. In other words, your arteries. It's your veins. It's called venous return in medicine. It's the problem that the blood doesn't get back to be reoxygenated enough. You know how it works, right? You know, heart makes oxygen, shoves it out to your system, but then it has to come back through your body into your heart. Well, the biggest single most important place of that blood coming back is your ankles, because that's the end of the line. It has to go from the feet, it's got to go through the ankle. So part of this lifting is that. Now, we're not going to do this yet, but in a few minutes I'm going to have you do an exercise where you're just going to watch how this is also, from this posture, going to, shall we say, increase its strength rather significantly. But for the moment, just try and at least play with each other. And, you know, like David, I had him like stick his hand underneath my foot, so that if I am pressing down, a person could say, yeah, you're pressing down. They could stick it, you know, in any place in your foot, without you physically dropping your weight. Because I think it's a no-brainer that if you drop your weight, no, I mean staying, that you will get more, but staying at the exact same height. Have the person put their hand there. And if you actually really get that dropping, they're going to feel your weight go right into it. It's not going to be ambiguous. You're not going to have to guess if it's happening. Okay? Then the next thing is that have them put their finger underneath your arch, like, can you lift? Then have them put their finger right behind your heel and see if you can get that arch lifting and that heel raising. And if any of you know how to take a pulse, you actually can feel the pulse change.